You're live here on News 90s on Joy 99.7 FM. The Finance Ministry has shut down the Bank of Ghana's request for a 53 billion cedi bailout, instead directing the central bank to explore internal solutions, including selling its newly built headquarters at Ridge. The Bank of Ghana has been reeling from a staggering 70 billion cedi loss, largely due to a 50% haircut from the controversial domestic debt exchange program under the Akufo-Addo administration. And the Finance Minister, Dr. Akufo-Addo, insists the government cannot step in just yet. A stance that not only leaves the central bank in financial turmoil, but also puts Ghana on a collision course with the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. The IMF had expected the government and the central bank to work out a recapitalization plan, but with no bailout in sight, tensions are mounting over how the regulator will restore its financial health.
Bank of Ghana had generated so much debt, so much, deficit. As a result, their balance sheet is not healthy, and that they have generated negative equity. Apparently, the previous administration in the Bank of Ghana had signed an MOU for the government of Ghana or the taxpayer to recapitalize the central bank with 53 billion Ghana cedis.
Do you have the money?
I've asked the Bank of Ghana to look within, cut expenditure, because the taxpayer cannot afford 53 billion. I've communicated that to the government.
But they already have an agreement with government.
First of all, they have to look within. You know, you've seen their new head office, very big building. They have a choice to sell and lease back if they want to. They have to look within and cut expenditure and reduce. Evans, the taxpayer cannot afford 53 billion Ghana cedis. Giving 53 billion Ghana cedis to the central bank will simply mean that we will have to deny the taxpayer some public good, like roads, like schools, like hospitals. Is that what we want? Can we afford it at this stage? The question is no. The answer is no. We cannot be able to afford that. And so the central bank must look within. They have hotels like Guest House and others. Why are they in Guest House? Can they sell some of them and use the money to recapitalize? Taxpayer cannot be used as a punching bag. So I've said to them they should look within. Luckily for me, the governor is on board. And I expect the governor to look within and cut expenditure, reflect the needs of the bank.
If they come to you with, their share of the bargain, would you meet them halfway? Or you want them to
the central bank
find all 53 billion?
If the central bank is able to come to me with a reasonable offer, we can have a conversation.
Okay.
But it must start from them. And I have also said that they may also have to consider plowing back their profit over the next 10 years to recapitalize it. That can also be done. It depends.
But what are the implications if they don't do this quickly? Can they survive?
It is not a problem. The bank can survive. See, first of all, what they need to do is to, as soon as possible, generate enough cash to be able to run the affairs of the bank, which I believe they are doing that. All over the world, you've seen some central banks that have survived with negative equity. So
yeah.
It's not out of order.
Well, as the central bank scrambles for solution, the financial sector watchers are anxious, fearing ripple effects that could destabilize the economy. Let's understand the Bank of Ghana's situation a bit more. Lead data analyst Isaac Kofi joins me in the studio with details of this. And we've been poring over some of the documents that we know have implications for this whole issue. That appears to be a stand-up on this particular matter. The central bank will have to find the money internally, and they've been told you have 10 years, plow back your profits. But there's an IMF catch there that we also need to explore on this particular side. But let's start with the impact of the domestic debt exchange on the Bank of Ghana, where this all started. The central bank had issued a statement back last year telling us how they came to accrue this huge debt. 60 billion it was.
What we are actually learning is that if you look at the DDEP program, in terms of the institutions that decided to take haircuts, the Bank of Ghana in the domestic space was one of the giants who took a 50% haircut by participating 100% and exchanging some 70 billion Ghana cedis. What we are understanding or learning is that if you look at the impairment or what Bank of Ghana had to forgo in terms of haircut was close to 32 billion Ghana cedis. And according to the Bank of Ghana itself, this plus some of the forex losses they suffered in 2022 and 2023 actually plunged the bank into that $60 billion cedis, debt or losses in 2022 and 10 billion loss in 2023. So together, they made a loss of close to 70 billion Ghana cedis in 2 years.
The IMF flagged these challenges. Apparently, we're learning an agreement was struck. In fact, the finance minister hinted at this on my show yesterday.
If we go to the most current IMF report, which is the December report on Ghana, page 56 of that document has the recapitalization of the central bank. And quote, they say that we, when they say we, they are referring to the government of Ghana, commenting that we are preparing for the recapitalization of the BOG due to the adverse impact of the DDEP. Now, there were actually 4 options that were available to the government in terms of the recapitalization. The first option was that the government told the fund that we are, quote, preparing for the recapitalization of the BOG due to the adverse impact, and they went ahead to list the options that were available to the government. The first one was to recapitalize through budgetary allocations. Second one is to either they sell or they transfer some of their assets. And the third option was the suspension of profit transfers. And the last one was the use of any buffers generated in program implementation. So there were 4 options. And just by listening to the finance minister, the indication is that possibly the BOG was looking forward to the first option, which is that government should fund this 53 billion Ghana cedis.
And once it's in that particular document, then it means the IMF already knows that it's very likely that depending on the choice that the government, of course, working with the BOG, they settle on, it could be one of the 4. And it could mean selling off the assets to fix the particular hole that they have, 53 billion.
Now, according to the IMF, whatever option we take, it must actually fall within the program's parameters, and so you cannot deal, you cannot actually forgo this agreement that we have with the fund. What we have to do is to do the gradual recapitalization of the bank, either by using one of the options or combining some to make sure that that 53 billion, cedis is actually met and the negative equity of the bank is reversed to the normal level.
Well, we've been speaking to banking consultant Dr. Richmond Dutiahene, who says former managers of the economy must be held accountable.
It means a lot. It means a lot. And we should not take it for granted. Like the minister said, you don't create a mess and leave the mess to come and clean the mess. And I agree with the minister perfectly that whoever created that mess must be responsible, personal responsibility. Because when they did finance fiscal, what we call the monetization of fiscal deficit in 2021-2022, some of us told them that what they are doing is going to lead us into where we are. But they didn't listen to us. Now, a whole central bank, we need $3 billion. And if you listen to the minister, $3 billion. Not million, $3 billion. How are we going to get $3 billion? Because IMF loan givers, the whole loan is $3 billion. How are you going to get the money? So for me, I agree with the minister perfectly with that. This is not a time for anybody to do the recapitalization. They either look from inside and do cutting and restructuring and even sales lease back, as he said, the property.
Well,
other than that, the minister cannot have any physical space to give $3 billion to finance the Bank of Ghana.
Assalamualaikum, brothers and sisters.
I want to bring in right now Kojo Nkrumah, who is a minority spokesperson on the economy. Joins us on the line pretty shortly. And we'll also be hearing from some officials of the Bankers Association. They have a stake in all this. We'll get your thoughts on that subject also. So live your news night is on Joy 99.7 FM. We've been hearing from players in the financial sector generally, though. Joe Jackson has been speaking to us. You know him, he is a chief executive officer of Daily Finance, and he's been talking about the challenge that the regulator finds itself in right now.
Some of us will say recklessness on the part of the managers of the central bank, because the challenge you have is this: when you pump that amount of money into the economy, when the central bank runs the kind of deficit that we're talking about, it's plain and simple inflationary. And some of us may argue that the inflation pain we are facing today is a result of that reckless behavior and running down the finances of the central bank. So, it's plain and simple. If a central bank racks up these losses in the space of a year or two, what will happen? But inflation. So, every single Ghanaian suffered from those reckless acts. But on a good note, I think the proposal to do a sale and lease back of the central bank's building is in the right direction.
You support the call for some kind of a leasing, or better still, the Bank of Ghana to sell off this property?
Think about it this way. Right now, the cost of the building is capital expenditure, and it is tax that has been sunk into a building. The central bank needs to create more liquidity for itself. What should they do? Should take the building, find somebody to say, I will sell you that building, and in return, I will become your anchor tenant. So the central bank will receive cash, goes to shore it up, and then starts to pay rent for the building. That makes sense. Standard procedure for an institution that has run into the kind of problems that the central bank has run. Remember, the bank's problems means that the market outside will look at us with jaundiced eyes if our central bank is running the kind of deficit that it has. In fact, that's why the central bank is saying, you bail me out, because they know that in the crisis that we have and where we are going, having a central bank that is insolvent does not make sense. And it will hamper our efforts to go to the market.
The controversy that erupted on the back of the budget statement yesterday was the controversy around the betting tax. Let's focus on the claims on the implementation of the betting tax and collection in Ghana made by the former finance minister, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, after the budget presentation yesterday. This was after the finance minister announced plans to abolish the tax on the floor of Parliament yesterday.
We will abolish the 10% withholding tax on winning from lottery, otherwise known as the betting tax.
Well, in reaction to this, the former minister made the claims, and my colleague Isaac Kofi joins me in the studio with some more on what he and had been looking at, but also a bit more on what Amin Adam had said, right? What exactly did he say?
Well, so Evans, he was very categorical yesterday during the press conference, and he said that the NPP administration did not collect the betting tax, and that was his claim that was made yesterday. And per our checks, available data from the GRA, or the Ghana Revenue Authority, shows that this claim is misleading. Why do we say so? Because in fact, there is what we call the gross gaming revenue, and then also a bigger tax handle called the gaming and betting tax. Now, under this big tax umbrella, there are three components. The first one is a gross gaming revenue, which was the first phase to be actually rolled out in May of 2023. This was more or less like a corporate income tax for the betting companies to pay. Then the government in August 2023 brought in the phase 2 of implementation of this new tax handle, which the phase 2 actually focused on winnings. And we have to emphasize winnings, or withholdings on winnings from betting. So in fact, that was also carried out in August of 2023, and that was a 10% that was placed on the winnings of those who participated or possibly in sports betting. Phase 3, which was to rope in the lotto operators, about 1,200 of them. In fact, that would have made the entire tax handle holistic, and government was expecting in excess of 1 billion Ghana cedis from this arrangement. But what we are learning is that because of the dominance of NLA in the public lottery business, they opposed to this 10% placement on the withholding, and said that if you decide to tax our client 10% on their winnings, what you're going to do is that you're going to give our client to the private guy, and that will price out NLA. And so government decided to delay the implementation of the phase 3. But what we know is that it will be inaccurate for anybody to say that the betting tax was not implemented. In fact, if you go through the Ghana Revenue Authority, according to data that we have from them, the betting tax, which was started in 2023, raked in some 51.3 million Ghana cedis in 2023, and then came 2024 that the tax handle got some 147.76 million Ghana cedis. If you add all of this, since the betting tax was actually introduced, or perhaps if you want to put it, the 10% on withholding on betting winnings, that tax revenue has raked in close to 200 million Ghana cedis in just 2 years. Now, the betting industry itself is, the government actually benefits a lot from the betting industry, because the total taxes that the betting industry paid in 2024 is almost 500 million Ghana cedis. And so, Evans, it will be misleading for anybody to say that government never went ahead to collect betting tax. The only component that was not carried out was the lottery aspect of the gaming and betting tax, Evans.
So there you have it. If you missed what Amin Adam said, this was his point yesterday at the press conference shortly after the budget.
Ladies and gentlemen, betting tax that they said they have abolished. We never collected betting tax. We never implement the betting tax. So to come and tell Ghanaians that you have abolished something that was not implemented is to deceive the people of Ghana.
And Kofi, I know you are a betting enthusiast. Some of them have been speaking to us already. I know you're smiling because this is something that you know very, very well. Is this something that you've experienced yourself, that the tax was implemented?
If you speak to some
winnings?
of the investors, myself, no, but because I don't bet. But I mean, if you speak to some of the investors, what they will tell you, and they've shown us their slips. And in fact, what we've seen is that the deduction has been going on, and the GRA document that they shared with us has actually affirmed that government was actually collecting the betting tax. And in 2 years, they've collected close to 200 million Ghana cedis from this tax.
Well, listen to some of them talk to us.
Oh, it's a good news for Ghanaians, simply because all young men have been betting, even the older people have been betting due to the hardships we are facing at the moment. So it's a good news for all. Those 10% being removed from the tax that you win has been costing us a lot due to the hardships.
When last did you win?
Oh, I won about 2 months ago.
Was it like how much?
It's about 5,000.
Wow, so you had to pay government 10% of the 5?
Yeah. Which is costing us a lot. So this time, most people have not been betting. So once the government has announced that, the present NDC government has announced that he has removed the tax, it's a good news to young men.
I mean, when you say because first, you travel to no one here, Intina, Impo, Kakrebiano, it me in a paper. I see as a question being put as a baby free sport only 10% free Mintinema, it me for Scout Baby Uncle, a bet accounts woman to me in Cabindi. Is a bet no, it me can say first, and it is on my free.
So he's very excited.
So a few betting enthusiasts, they're having a conversation with us about the betting tax. And if you've also experienced the tax on your account, if you are one of those who like betting on games, for example, share your thoughts with us, 055-11-11997. So listen to News Studies on Joy 99.7 FM. And today we're learning from lawyers of former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta that he has sued now, gone to court and dragged a few security operatives before the courts, demanding damages for trespassing on his home. It follows the raid on his home last month that generated a fair bit of controversy. It forced the majority leader to apologize to him. Now he's taking legal action. My colleague Latif Idris is here in the studio with details of this. What more do we know?
Yeah, so just to go back to the point you just made, on the 12th of February, some pictures started making rounds on social media, and in those pictures you will find armed security operatives. Some of them armed, some unarmed, some in uniform, some in plain clothes. And in those pictures, you would find them at the residence of the former Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, who at that time was out of the jurisdiction. And so we thought this was just a social media stint, and then that ended it. Today, we've gotten notice that the former Finance Minister has directed his lawyers to sue the security operatives who raided, and that is the word, operative word that is being used, raided his residence here in Accra. And I'll just run us quickly through the statement of claim that Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta is making through his lawyers. He says he wants the court to make a declaration that the defendant's entry upon and conduct of a search on plaintiff's property with house number 25 Akolebu CR GL-041-2486 Laboni in Accra on the 11th of February 2025 was trespassory and a breach of plaintiff's right to privacy. B. Damages for trespass. C. Aggravated damages for breach of privacy. D. Perpetual injunction restraining the defendants, whether by themselves, agents, assigns, from entering upon plaintiff's property and or further breaching plaintiff's privacy or repeating similar or other conduct against plaintiff. And finally, he's also asking for costs to be awarded to him because he feels that he's had some trauma following the raid by these security operatives.
Specifics. We learned a few more details about the raid itself. One thing I didn't know before is that the individuals who allegedly raided the home asked the domestic staff not to use your phones.
Exactly.
It didn't state here that they seized the phones, but they prevented them from using their phones. And then also, we're also learning the exact number of individuals who raided the home. It provides a bit more detail around that to the courts.
Yeah.
Right? That we're also learning about today. Then also, if you go to in terms of the number of individuals who went, some of them military. Say it talks about 9 military personnel.
Yeah, 9 military personnel carrying assault rifles and other menacingly looking individuals in plain clothes.
And also we learned that they also went with what they call a videographer.
Yeah.
Who was filming as they searched.
Everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere.
And they gave us a bit more detail about where they searched in the home. They searched his car, his fridge, his freezer, his cupboards, closets, plates and car. I'm wondering what they were looking for in the plates. They said the cutlery, the kitchen, the open spaces. They went to the bedroom as well, and they were generally on the compound. So they searched everywhere, and they searched while this individual filmed. He wasn't there, but he claims that after this has left the domestic staff traumatized.
And in fact, and most importantly, they did all of these, according to this, without any form of warrant.
So that's the rates filed. But who are the individuals that he's dragged before the court now?
Yeah, so he's trying to get some security operatives whose names have been listed in the rates of summons. So you have DSP Bismarck Boache Ansa. You also have Chief Inspector Mensah, that is AKA Sir Mensah, both of Accra. So these are the two security operatives.
But when this first emerged, we heard about Jakba. In fact, they even showed us pictures from him. I mean, the MPP showed us pictures of him with videos, etc., that he was at home. It was part of the raid, but he's not part of this suit.
Yeah, that is curious.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, Latif. I want to bring in Martin Kpebu, paralegal practitioner, and following this very closely, joins us on the line right now. You've seen the raid, I believe. Knowing what we now know, considering that his home was raided, we saw the videos and the pictures that were circulated. You've seen his raid. Your thoughts?
Yes, Evans, I have. My thoughts on it. Yes, so Evans, cut to the chase. You see, unfortunately, we have an old law that allows police to conduct such a search. It's not desirable at all, right? But the law does permit. So that's why, let's go straight. We are talking about Section 94. So this case that Akufo-Addo is filed is going to bring this law into focus, and perhaps it will increase the the calls for the review of the law. So Section 94 of the Act 30 makes provision for a police officer not below the rank of ASP to enter a property without a warrant to search. We are going to read through. Or, and even apart from that, such an officer or above can authorize a junior officer to enter a property to search. So let's read it. It says, so there are two parts. The entering is one, and then two, the search. So listen, it says, a police officer not below the rank of assistant superintendent of police, or who being below the rank is authorized in writing to do so by a police officer not below that rank, may enter a house, shop, warehouse, yard, ship, boat, vessel, beach, or any other premises which the police officer has reasonable cause to believe contains property which has been stolen or dishonestly received. So the one we just read is for entry. So if the person enters, you can't say once he meets this criteria, ASP, or if he's below ASP, then he's been authorized by an ASP or above, including the IGP. Then two, the police officer may search for, search for, seize, and secure the property which the police officer has reasonable cause to believe has been stolen or dishonestly received, as if the police officer had a search warrant and the property seized corresponded to the property described in the warrant. So the two is for searching.
Except that in this instance, the men who raided his home, he says in this raid were military officers, 9 of them. So they were not police officers.
No, he sued the police officer. So the military men are described in there, but they are not the subject of the suit. So I see they said GSP, is there Ansa, and then another one, Chief. Is that the phone I'm using? We can go over. You see two names. He didn't sue the police, the military.
And what's your thoughts on that? That he, in the statement of facts, talks about 9 military officers, but when he's suing, he isolates only 2 police officers.
Yes, it's good to give context. Now, when it comes to those military people, that place is very slippery. The situation is even worse when you go to the Intelligence and Securities and Intelligence Agencies Act. So, as I mentioned, the law is generally in a state of, it's archaic. We don't like it. I know even when I was in law school about 20 years ago, people were against this and that. No, we should not allow police to come into a premises without warrant, etc. But I graduated 18 and a half years ago, and the law is still the same. You meet judges in court asking us, hey, Martin, what are you guys doing about Act 30? The law is so archaic. But trust me, for this one, the police can, if they want to rely on it, unless they want to say, well, that's not the law they were relying on. And even Latif, your officer, Latif, who got beaten at the premises of the police and life-threatening injuries, the police haven't admitted they are wrong, much less this one. It will be interesting that the police will just say, well, we throw in the towel. That would be extremely interesting. Then in that case, we'll be asking that they throw in the towel in respect of Latif, who has received permanent injuries. That's Latif Idrisu, your own reporter at Joy FM, right? So the law is in a state of, there's a very bad state. Yes, I wanted to say state of disrepair. It's in a bad state. It's archaic. This one is 1960 at 30, but it is still law. It is still law. So, and when you come, the military people, let's not run ahead. But if we, when we get there, we'll cross that bridge. Use some protection for them too under the Security and Intelligence Agencies Act. But you hold our horses.
Martin, thank you very much. Martin Pebu is a lawyer, and you're still listening to News 90 on Joy 99.7 FM. And George Jaffe is here with the very latest from the world of business. Hello, George.
Hi, Evans. And President John Mahama insists policy measures outlined in the 2025 budget will help create the needed jobs, whilst highlighting government's commitment to fiscal discipline. And Finance Minister Dr. Akufo-Addo rejects claims of lack of prudent spending after total appropriation reached 291 billion Ghana cedis for last year. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one stop shop for all your office essentials. Synthesis tanks and Pepsodent Herbal and Charcoal. You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, President John Mahama has maintained that the policy measures rolled out in the 2025 budget will help create the needed jobs in the country. Finance Minister Dr. Akufo-Addo announced several initiatives that should bring some relief to businesses as well as other government projects that should help in expanding the economy. The president noted that various programs announced demonstrate their commitment to fiscal discipline as well.
These policies are also aimed at ensuring improvement in education, healthcare, roads, energy, agriculture, trade and agribusiness, and other areas, all with the overarching objective of creating jobs for our people. The budget also provided specific allocated funds for all the commitments we made in the 120-day social contract with the people of Ghana. We found resources for the major infrastructure projects under our Big Push agenda, as we have also for the no academic fees policy, for the National Apprenticeship Program, for the Jumara Program, seed money for the Women's Development Bank, and the 1 million coders program, among many others.
President John Mahama, now Finance Minister Dr. Akufo-Addo, has rejected arguments that he failed to use the budget to demonstrate government commitment to prudent spending. Now, this was after total appropriation for this year stood at 291 billion Ghana cedis. Now, this is more than the 250 billion Ghana cedis realized in 2024. The development has raised a lot of concerns about government's commitment to fiscal discipline, as well as containing the rising debt stock. But the finance minister disagrees. He argues that this actually wasn't put out well.
In the year 2024, we had not resumed the servicing of certain debt. Today we have resumed. And so it is not always appropriation that you use to make that analysis. There's something we call primary expenditure. That is what we throw out to the primary deficit. So the reason why we do that is that segregate debt servicing, because it's a given. You have already accumulated X amount of debt and you have to pay. You can't cut that expenditure. It is only, for example, the TB rate that based on the activities, you can reduce it downwards. But the other debt, like the debt restructuring that was done recently, you have already restructured the debt and you have to pay. And you are now beginning to pay, so you have to pay. But the cut that we have the power to cut has to do with primary expenditure. And primary expenditure has come down. If you can inform the person to look out for primary expenditure, he will understand what primary expenditure is and the cut that we have made.
And that is Finance Minister Dr. Akufo-Addo. Now, tax analyst Francis Timoboy has indicated that there could be some justification of a government decision to delay the removal of the COVID-19 levy. Now, Finance Minister Dr. Akufo-Addo announced that scrapping about 5 taxes. However, it excluded the COVID-19. Mr. Timoboy notes that the government maybe has a plan on how to reform the whole tax structure before it is removed.
Myself, I'm also not too sure why they couldn't take the bold decision to, scrap it just like they've done for the e-levy. But overall, it looks like they want to have some discussion with the IMF, assess whether removing it can cause some trouble. Because if you look at the total projections that they did from now to 2027, that the COVID-19 is likely to bring around 14 billion Ghana cedis. And so if you need money to complete hospital projects, IMF can advise that let's maintain it and then use to complete the project. But let's see how things unfold. I think that they may have decided to postpone the immediate abolishment because they want to see how they are going to perform over the next period. By mid-year budget, we should see some recommendations from the tax reform, the VAT reform task force on the COVID-19.
Francis Timoboy is a tax analyst. Now, SIC Insurance saw its profit before tax rate some new levels for last year. The audited financials released by the insurance giant showed that its profit before tax hit 80.5 million Ghana cedis for last year compared to 25 million Ghana cedis posted in 2023. Insurance revenue stood at 513 million Ghana cedis for last year, that is 2024. Now, President of the Ghana Association of Restructuring and Insolvent Advisors, Felix Addo, has maintained that it might be difficult for government to restore the licenses of defined commercial banks. It follows a fresh appeal by owners of these banks that their licenses should be restored based on an initial promise by this administration. But Mr. Addo maintains that the issue about confidence and reputational issues may make it difficult for this move to be actualized.
If today these licenses are restored, what the ordinary reasonable person would do, depositor, is to go into the bank and as quickly as possible pull out all his deposits in the bank.
It is for that reason some have also made proposals that we should give shares in the merged entities, like giving part of Consolidated Bank Ghana to them.
They are willing to do so. But trust me, if I were the person, I would take my 100% of my money, just like the Euro bonds, right? If government gives me the opportunity today, I would take my 100%.
President of the Ghana Association of Restructuring and Insolvency Advisors, Felix Addo, speaking to my colleague Pius Kojobaka. And that is all for business on Newsnight. And it's time for sports.
Yes, now in sports, Kumasi Asante Kotoko advanced to the quarterfinals of the ongoing FA Cup after defeating Division 1 side 11 Wise by a goal to nil in the game that took place earlier today at the Babara Sports Stadium. Well, it was an outstanding game that Kotoko had to play to finalize the teams that have advanced to the quarterfinals now. And Kotoko will be facing another Division 1 side in True Democracy FC in the quarterfinal fixtures that will happen later this month. Now, to some related stories. This one has to do with former Ghana international, and you remember that English defender Jamie Carragher some days ago berated the African Cup of Nations tournament when he made comments regarding Mohamed Salah. When he was discussing Mohamed Salah, and suggested that the AFCON was not a major tournament, comparing it to regional competitions like the Gold Cup and the Asian Games. Well, former Bayern Munich Ghana international Sami Kuffour is the latest to hit back at Jimmy Carragher for downplaying the significance of the African Cup of Nations tournament, insisting that the Liverpool player must apologize to Africans for the comments. Well, the former Ghana international has been speaking to Kelvin Owusu Ansah of Sporty FM.
Jimmy Carragher, has he won a man of the match in his career before? Has he been selected in the best player of the league before?
No.
First 11. Has he been selected the best defender in Europe before? No. He hasn't been in the team of the week before. Come on. Yeah. So if Jimmy Carragher is talking, I mean, those are the things that we don't listen.
Yeah.
Ferdinand, John Terry, and those people, they're supposed to talk, not you. What has he achieved? Jimmy Carragher, please. He has to respect us, because how many African players have made a great impact in Premier League?
Yeah.
He is talking about the coaches to win the Premier League. Did he play? When he was playing, did he win Premier League?
No.
So what is he talking about? Some of us, like me for instance, I never had my chance to win the African Cup of Nations. It kills me every day.
Yeah.
It kills me every day, because there is nothing that I can show to my children.
Yeah.
How many great players have won that title?
Very difficult.
So please, a very difficult tournament to play, because we know each other. The strength is good, the technique is good, the understanding of the game is always the same. Ghana, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria. You can never underrate anyone when you play against it, when they play against each other. So what is he talking about?
Jamie Carragher.
Yeah, man, Jamie Carragher.
He was a bang average player.
Bang average.
Playing for Liverpool.
He asked him whether he has ever won man of the match before.
Very good question. The last time I was watching him post one of the Champions League matches, and he went on there was a sprint. between himself and I Show Speed. Even that,
he lost. My goodness. And with a few Champions League games coming up tonight, Borussia Dortmund will play Lille. Aston Villa got a big one against Club Brugge. But the big one tonight is Atletico Madrid against Real Madrid. Of course, Real Madrid going into the game with a 2-1 advantage, and we're all waiting to see how that will unfold. We've got live commentary for you on here. It's 103.9 FM in some minutes. Time, I think the game is at 7:30 thereabout. So yeah, we'll go commentary for you.
Thank you very much. Now, rising temperatures caused by climate change are severely impacting poultry farming in the Doma East district of the Bono region, with farmers reporting significant losses due to heat stress in recent months. As temperatures soared, poultry mortality rates spiked, endangering both livelihoods and food security. In response, the Department of Agriculture has introduced interventions to help farmers mitigate the effects of extreme heat. Now, these include the adoption of cooling systems to regulate temperatures in poultry houses, providing much needed relief to the birds and significantly reducing mortality rates. Mohammed Nuruddin has more in this report for Climate Focus.
Extreme heat has devastated farmers here at Doma East, wiping out flocks and leaving many with losses or even debt. In the face of adversity, these farmers have found hope and innovation in the most unlikely of places. Christiana is one of the poultry farmers.
Heat stress impacts our finances significantly. It results in high mortality rate, causes the eggs to become very soft and break easily, and leads to reduced egg production. The veterinary team led by Robert is doing an excellent job, and they visit regularly without needing to be invited.
Farmers like Christiana, alongside many others in Doma East, are adopting new cooling systems to protect their investments. These systems reduce the deadly heat stress that claimed so many poultry in previous years. Here is Thompson.
When the drinking water becomes hot, it can contribute to heat stress. So I decide not to use the iron sheets for roofing the water tank. Instead, I planted trees around the tank to provide shade. I use that cooler water to supply to the birds. With the high temperatures now, we have always added ash blocks to the birds' drinking water. This helps cool their systems, offering them relief from the heat just like humans.
In addition to cooling systems, the farmers are also planting trees around their poultry houses. The trees serve as a natural shade and windbreaks, further lowering temperatures in and around the poultry farms. This combination of cooling techniques and tree planting is proving to be an effective solution. Farmers are already reporting positive results.
Climate Focus is brought to you by JoyNews in partnership with Youth Bridge Foundation, Bridging Gaps for Positive Youth Development, and the Climate Development Knowledge Network.
Well, the Mahama administration is taking steps to provide funding for free dialysis and treatment of other non-communicable diseases in Ghana. According to the World Health Organization, non-communicable diseases account for approximately 45% of deaths in the country, with cardiovascular diseases responsible for 19% and 5% for cancers. Health Minister Kwabena Akufo-Addo today inaugurated a 9-member technical task force to ensure improvement of the country's healthcare infrastructure and ease the financial burden on patients battling chronic illness like kidney disease. Now, Akufo-Addo today also criticized the previous MPP government for failing to establish a dedicated funding source for free dialysis treatment. He emphasized the urgent need for a sustainable alternative to the National Health Insurance Scheme to ensure its stability and prevent collapse.
I was a ranking member on the health committee, so there was no sustainable sources of funding for the dialysis. It never happened. I was a ranking member on the committee, and at the time we even suggested to make provision for dialysis, and they allocated 2 million Ghana cedis, and they had to go and take about additional 2 million from corporate social responsibility. I can tell you, 4 million Ghana cedis cannot take care of dialysis in the whole country. So they need to be a sustainable and a reliable sources of funding. Look, if we decide to put all manner of disease on the National Health Insurance Scheme, it will collapse. You have no idea about how it costs to treat, a heart disease or chronic disease, surgeries and what have you. We can't afford to put all these diseases on the National Health Insurance. That's why there's a need for us to provide this special purpose vehicle, a reliable one, so that if you are confronted with this chronic disease, it will not be the case that because you cannot afford the treatment, you then be nearing your grave.
Mita Kando is a health minister. In our Ghana Man series today, we take you to Imampehia, a town whose name meaning women do not like poverty. Indeed, tells a story of struggle and survival. But beyond the name lies a deeper tale of resilience. And Sabit has more.
In Ghana, names of towns and villages are mostly given by the first settlers in those communities and are often drawn from their life experiences. But few are as bold as Mampehia, which literally means women do not like poverty. For decades, this community, which lies along the Techiman-Sunyani Highway, had its name derived from a bitter experience of the man who first settled here. Today, we are here to uncover the defiant history behind this extraordinary name, which have left many travelers and visitors wondering what could have informed the unique name of this predominantly farming community. Openi Nana Amwabafo is a resident and a former assemblyman here.
What
I know about it is that the man who first settled here was from Kobo. He was from the Nsanye family. He was called Aduyao. Openi Aduyao, who then had 2 wives, went through lots of difficulties with his farming trade, subjecting him to extreme hardships. This led to his 2 wives leaving him because they both abhorred poverty. He came with 2 wives, but seeing how tough life became, both wives left him. His friends and family started inquiring about the whereabouts of his wives. He then replied by saying, women don't like poverty. Hence, the name Mampehia, which means women do not like poverty. The name Mampehia became a blueprint. This is because people who knew Openi Aduyao often asked about the whereabouts of his wives, and his response, Mampehia, to wit, women do not like poverty.
Indeed, women do not like poverty. Enjoy the rest of your evening.